This is Coda Radio, episode 120 for September 22nd, 2014. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our excellent host, established on the East Coast, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Hello.
You were teasing me. Come on. You were playing with me because you did that on the pre-show, right?
Did you like that?
Tell me you totally planned that. Did you totally plan that?
A little bit, yeah.
No,
I'm writing out a reply to someone here.
Good, at the top of the show, too. It sounds like the right time to do something like that. Why not? Just,
Well, it's related to this show.
You know, as the show gets started, what I find to be really kind of clearing is just I get all my phone calls out of the way, I get all my emails done. If I got any text messages to send, I do those as we're starting the show. So that way, about a good 30 minutes into the show, I'm ready, I'm present, you know? That's my commitment to you.
Well, that's how I roll, right?
Well, we have too much show today. It's ridiculous. In fact, I got a letter from your buddy, Barack Obama. Here it is right here. And he says, Dear Michael Dominic, this is too much podcast for one show. Would you please consider sanctioning your podcast and making it 2 episodes? And I
Hello, everybody.
Oh, jeez, hi. I said, no, get it out of here. Get it out of here. We have a big show today. And we have just some brief feedback. Normally, the Coda Radio show, you know, I kept hearing Mike all week long, like, oh, I got it from a few people. Oh, I'm going to write in an email, and I'm going to tell those Coda Radio guys about privacy and how Mike he's crazy. And I don't think we got like hardly anything on that. But I got a lot of people telling me they were going to. And if those people had taken the time that they took to tell me they were going to email and actually emailed, we would probably have a longer feedback segment.
Well, it's my raw sexual magnetism.
That might be it.
They're afraid, they're intimidated.
That's what keeps me here. I'll be honest.
That's right?
Hey, I'm not hiding it. That's why I'm here. I show up every
Also,
week.
did you see this Samsung purple smartwatch?
What?
Gear Live?
Oh, no.
Hold
on. What?
Yeah, I'm gonna link it in the chat here.
Okay.
Bam.
So
Okay, so they say it's wine red, but kids, that color is purple.
Hold on.
Color's been purple for a long time.
Is this like when they had something that was gold that turned out to be not gold? Remember that? It was like, oh, well, actually, I actually think that's not a bad purple, though.
No, I like it. I'm not ripping them apart. I actually would totally wear that.
No, you wouldn't.
I absolutely would.
Shut up. No, you would not wear that.
I currently wear an orange watch.
I don't think you'd wear that watch, dude. I don't think you would wear that. Come on.
I'm a big fan of the purples and pinks.
Really? Well, I mean, that's fine. But first of all, I think you have better taste than getting a gear. But
well, the only thing is I hate Samsung.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But like if Motorola came out,
I'm not commenting so much on the color. I'm talking about that it's a Samsung gear.
Well,
this is where they're at now. This is where they're at in the brand space. They're that brand now. Don't you think? And I'm not, I'm just saying. The problem is here's what I've decided about the smartwatches. I think I'm out until Pebble. I'm going to wait for the next Pebble and see what they do. Because right now, I want something. I have an Android and an iOS, and there's nothing that works with all of them except for Pebble. So I can be a patient man.
The thing is, like, I don't want more notifications. In fact, I would like fewer of them.
Right? Yeah. I agree.
So the idea of a smartwatch just doesn't fly.
No, it's kind of no.
But let's help the children.
All right. Chris writes in, not this Chris, different Chris, on the topic of responding to PT Dave and how he's going to take on some classes for students and teaching them how to develop. In response to PT Dave's email from last episode, I think that as long as he stays in the industry to some degree and continues getting his curriculum up to date, he'll be all set. I'm a senior in high school, and the biggest problem I've had with my IT-related class is that my teachers are otherwise excellent, but they aren't in tune with the advancements of technology. Yeah, I bet that's not too uncommon. He goes on to say that as a result, we're learning incredibly outdated things like web design with frames, Flash, and even Microsoft Front Page. He'll be doing a great service to his students simply by staying modern and doesn't need to worry so much about implementation details. Also, in response to what Chris said about podcasts, I absolutely agree. They're probably the best resource I've had to learn about technology. I've been listening to TechSnap and Coder Radio since their first episodes. And I can say without a doubt, I've learned more useful information from them than all my high school classes combined. I doubt that. No, I'm gonna. I do not accept. I do not accept. I do not accept. But thanks, Chris. I agree. Stay current. That would be key, I think, is stay current. And the fact that there's still classes out there teaching front page and frames makes me a very sad panda. I do not. So PTU Dave, I think you're on the right course just by even worrying about it. Okay, Mike. Our next email comes in from Kyle. And Kyle has he grokked that we were a little biased towards the Dvorak keyboard layout and thought it was kind of ridiculous.
It is, but
yeah,
continue.
okay, right. So he says, "Hi, Chris. I know you guys are alternative keyboard layout haters. See now we've been." You see now how we're just generally haters for all keyboard layouts now, except for QWERTY, like QWERTY Master Race over here.
QWERTY Power.
Yeah, but I thought I'd give you a hopefully unbiased account of using one. A year ago, my productivity was crippled literally by pain in my hands from typing. I decided to do something, I needed some change, and I tried using Dvorak because I heard it would help. I spent a week or so learning that before I heard about some newer alternatives called Colmek and Workman. I don't know if I'm getting Colmek right. It's Colemak. Do with that as you will. He says, I waffled a bit on which to actually use, but I decided to go with Colmek because it's included with every Linux distro. Hey, that's nice. And it even gets easy to get going on Windows 8. I wasn't interested in typing speed... I wasn't interested in typing speed dick measuring contests. In fact, typing speed is more or less the same as it was with QWERTY. I just wanted relief from pain in my hands. Colmek has helped me enormously with this regard because it explicitly is designed to encourage you to alternate hands when typing and reduce the frequency you have to reach for distant keys. Another great thing about it is that it's designed so that the bottom row of keyboard resembles QWERTY, so copy and paste hotkeys don't change. Ooh. Now, there are some downsides. Hotkeys still need to be remapped in some programs, and if you're using older versions of Windows, you'll need to run a tiny executable you can download from the Colmask website to get you going. The biggest downside is I found that the claims by advocates of alternative layouts that you won't forget how to type in QWERTY simply aren't true. After about a month with Colmek, I completely forgot how to touch type with QWERTY, and I've been reduced to hunt and peck when using that layout. Not much fun. And I have to say, so I only really use QWERTY for gaming these days. Anyhow, I still love Colmek, and I have no plans of switching back. Colmek is an alternative to Dvorak that will save you on stress-related injuries. Worth checking out, Kyle. That's a good input. I know people. When I go to the fests and the cons, I bump into people who talk a lot about wrist pain and carpal tunnel stuff, and so it's a big problem out there. I don't know if you ever have that, Mike? Have we talked about that?
I don't think so. We've talked about ergonomic keyboards. I mean, I'm using a DOS keyboard right now. Our third host, and I just can't get into the alternative keyboard thing. I just can't.
Yeah, you just you just need to hang out for brain connectivity. That'll be the superior connective method. Keelan, Keelan writes in, "Hey guys, thanks for all the great episodes. This is our last email, so I told you it's gonna be fast feedback. After the episode on you talked about Notch, I wanted to get your take on generally the state of economics of indie development. I've been working with a team of 9 people on a game side project. We're either students working full-time or both. The project started as a 48-hour game jam that we decided to take further by meeting another 48-hour jam the next month. After meeting for several months, we formed an LLC to hold the investment of time we're putting into the project ourselves against some of the drama we knew could happen if we were ever lucky enough to become successful. 2 years plus later, we're still mirroring the successful. 2 years later, we're still meeting and launched this Kickstarter and Steam Greenlight campaign in September to help bring it to completion. So he'll include the Kickstarter video, which we'll take a look at in a second. He says, we've seen a lot of excitement for people as we showcase the game at various conferences and festivals, especially kids, but the campaign has been pretty tough going. None of us are expecting to live off the revenue from the game, but even without counting the hours spent, things like software licensing and promotions and all of that. So, do you think Kickstarter is still or ever will be a viable way to fund basic costs of development for projects that require talents of multiple people? Do you have any suggestions for scaling up collaboration from more than just 1 or 2 people for large teams in a way that works economically, even if it's just to cover costs? Thanks for your thoughts. So, he sent us along the Kickstarter, Mike. They've got 68 backers. They've had $5,000 in pledges, $5,000. Their goal is a $24,000 goal, so they're pretty shy of it with only 9 days to go. Do you want to see a little bit of the video? Here, I'll play a little bit.
Let's see the video. Play it up.
All right, here we go. This is exciting. We'll have this link to the show notes, too. All right, so we're getting some in-game shots of the train. Tumbleweed Express, the fastest gun in the West. So it's it looks like it's got a train. There's ships flying with laser guns, and the train itself has laser cannons. So that's pretty cool. It's a Unity power game that'll be available for Mac, Linux, and Windows. And so he's wondering do we think that Kickstarter is a viable funding platform for independent developers? And I might even add the caveat, maybe not well-known independent developers. Mike, have you ever thought about doing a Kickstarter for a project of yours? Did you opt out for any particular reason? What do you think about the whole topic?
You know, I'm not a Kickstarter person. I was enthusiastic in the beginning, but I could definitely see why people do it. But I do feel like getting traditional funding is a pretty good, and I know you're setting me up because I put this on Twitter last week, is a pretty good, shall we say, sniff test for a project. Now, games are kind of a different, in my mind, a different thing, especially small indie games like this. But you know, full commercial projects, I really feel like, because the thing, investors generally don't care. Like, they're not passionate about anything other than money, right? Mm-hmm. So you know what they're good at? Seeing if things are going to make money. If you can't convince at least one investor to invest something in your project, I don't know that it's okay to... I don't think it's appropriate that Kickstarter exists in a lot of ways.
But how could a couple of guys, you know, how could a group, maybe a team, how could, you know, maybe you got 5 people of various backgrounds and skill sets, how could they realistically go out and find an investor? I mean, this is like their opportunity to take their case to the people.
That's been a challenge for hundreds of years, right? You know, how did Bill Gates find an investor for Microsoft? I mean, it's not
his dad
friends and family, right? Not that rich. I mean, initially,
I don't know. You got to be. You got to. Yeah, you're right. I guess that's the hard part. Here, they came up on the video now. Now the music is done and the guys are back. Let's hear a little bit what they have to say, and maybe we can garner some insights.
Designer for the Ballers. What you just saw was some of the latest footage from Tumbleweed Express, a game that our team of committed independent developers have been passionately working on for the last 3 years. The project was first prototyped in November of 2011 as the result of Game Jam, which is a 48-hour marathon session of iterative design and rapid prototyping around a particular theme. In our case, train combat. Our goals for this project are to produce a game that will be enjoyed by enthusiasts of trains and steampunk, as well as fans of tower defense and rail shooters.
I like the idea of train combat. That seems that's an untapped market, I think. I mean, I wish best of luck to him, but I don't see the problem I have with Kickstarter is that it's a popularity contest, and if you don't have it's one of these weird things, because if you actually had a following large enough to maybe rally around a Kickstarter campaign, you almost also wouldn't need Kickstarter.
But then there's the other side of things, like why is it why is it necessarily fair that Kickstarter is designed basically on who can market and who can have the biggest following, who can have the best marketing campaign? How many Kickstarter projects have gone under, right? Where folks just, ran out of money because they were too naive to have a proper business plan, which is, again, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this, but that's part of what a traditional investor would do for you, right? They would sit down with you and say, actually, $1 million isn't going to do it. You need like 10 million.
Right. There's a bit of a vetting there, isn't there?
Right. There's a bit of a sanity test for profit margins and for what if something goes wrong.
That does not scale to the demand, right?
And I love the types of people who do Kickstarters, right? They're artists, they're creative people, but the problem is, and again, Linux fanboys hate me, you kind of need a Jobs and a Woz, right? You need a business guy and a technical or creative guy.
I think or you have to have something that is so appealable to the general public that it's a slam dunk. Something that people will tell other people that can, I don't want to use the word viral, but that can pick up a lot of self momentum in the marketing. And that is a very rare thing, because it really needs to be something that addresses a market need, that is something that a lot of people have acknowledged as a market need. I'm not trying to say that a train combat game isn't that, but it's probably just not that appealing to that mass market. And I think maybe if you look back at a previous interview where we talked about shipping a more minimum viable product, maybe you could scale it back and get it to something that could generate a little bit of revenue on Steam that could then justify investing further into it. And then also gives you the opportunity, if it just doesn't do well, maybe the market has spoken.
And one thing I would say is, like, people say, oh, well, then they can't afford to quit their day job and start a business or start their project. Starting a business has traditionally, and isn't forever, been really, really hard, right? And the reality is the vast majority of people who do it fail and end up filing bankruptcy and end up having, some severe issues.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we should be. The other side of the thing is I definitely see a lot on Twitter, a lot on Facebook, folks who contribute to Kickstarters feel like they're investors. No, you're donating to someone, right? I mean, in reality, you're a donator. And if that person doesn't follow through, or you bought into some hype, or they change their mind for whatever reason, maybe it's too hard, you are not really entitled to your money back. I'm sure you've seen these, Chris, people raging that they should get a refund.
I've even struggled with feeling that way sometimes.
Right. Well, you're not entitled to it.
Right.
Like, legally, you're just not.
Right.
So, I think that, I don't know, many of you will know this. The United States has laws about who can be an investor, generally speaking, right? To protect people who might not be able to afford it. And in my mind, Kickstarter breaks down that barrier, which in most cases I'm all down for breaking down barriers. But I'm seeing way too many, like, people who, invest $1,000 that they don't really have, right? That kind of thing. It's just not.
I think part of it is sort of a change in perception, and then people commit to a lot in their campaign, and a lot of times people have a hard time.
It's also taking the risk, right? If you're so confident in your project, if you're so confident in your business, why don't you take the risk? Why don't you let your family take the risk of going bankrupt and not ask for other people's money, or get an investor? And if your project's so good, a traditional investor should jump, right?
Maybe
get 20-30% of that.
I mean, that seems like the more traditional approach would be you assume all of the risk up front, you carry that burden to make it a provable product, something that people are interested in, and then it becomes an enticing product for somebody to want to invest in because you've already demonstrated it can have some success. So
yeah, I think that's the better model.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you about a great model. That's DigitalOcean, our first sponsor on the Coder Radio program, DigitalOcean.com. Let me tell you a little bit about why DigitalOcean rocks so exceptionally hard. They have made my life straight up 100% easier. I used to do server deployments for a living, and now that DigitalOcean is here, this is the way I do all of my server deployments from now on. It's not even like, there's not even a second thought, and I'll tell you why. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. That means my barrier to entry to get a new server going is super low. It doesn't make me wait, stretch it out, procrastinate. I know I can just go get it done super quick. Users can create a cloud server in less than 55 seconds. And pricing plans start only $5 a month for 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. Connected to Tier 1 bandwidth. DigitalOcean has data centers all over the world. New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. I've got a couple in New York and a couple in San Francisco now. I'm all up in it in droplets, you guys. And I'm thinking about going to London just that way I have some geographical diversity. It's pretty awesome. That new London data center is rocking too. Incredible spin-up times, private networking. CoreOS is deployed in many of these regions. Such a great time to try it out too. And if you use our promo code, you get $10 credit, which means you can try out DigitalOcean 2 months for absolutely free when you use our promo code CODERSEPTEMBER. All one word, lowercase, CODERSEPTEMBER when you check out. You'll get the $10 credit. That'll give you ample opportunity to play with the DigitalOcean dashboard. It's amazing. They have an intuitive control panel which power users can replicate on a larger scale with their straightforward API. And I've been told it's a damn fine API too. This is so much. It's so impressive to see all of this come together. KVM, SSDs, Tier 1 bandwidth, an amazing dashboard, a great company and people behind it. And honestly, I won't lie, as a Linux advocate, I'm extremely proud that the Linux technology that we've all been championing for and pushing forward, things like KVM and all of these advancements have made a lot of it possible. And now, for a great price, and you can support the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, when you use that promo code CODERSEPTEMBER when you check out, you get that $10 credit. It's a great way to go. I have my PayPal account connected, and so if I end up with a couple extra bucks when we clear out all the things at the end of the month, I could toss it over there, or you could do that too. Or you can connect to a credit card or whatever you like. But when you use the promo code CODERSEPTEMBER, you'll get the $10 credit and won't even have to worry about it for 2 months. Try it out. Absolutely free. DigitalOcean.com. And a big thanks to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. All right, Mr. Dominic, so our first bit of hoopla this week is It's a steaming pile of hoopla. It is so steaming. It is so piley. Let's see. Where did I? I printed out the highlights of it because it was so steamy piley. But then we got all talking, and I threw them somewhere.
Indeed, and I have a war story about this one.
Where did my notes go? All right, well, it's all right. I have them on the show notes too. But this is amazing. So 2 different posts to GitHub, and they've caught the attention of our subreddit and many others on Reddit. So it's not just our subreddit; it's in the drama, but everybody is. And here's the first one. I'm just going to read it to you, okay? Or actually, just a couple of highlights because it's a damn fine letter, but it's just way too long. Anonymous writes, of course, just on GitHub, an open letter to Xamarin. Please stop abusing your monopoly. He says, I've been using Xamarin for the past half year, almost full-time, developing an application for both iOS and Android. Everything in this letter is based on my personal experience with this technology, and it goes on for quite a bit, so I extracted a couple of the good bits. Here she says, I'd really like to know what the priority is at Xamarin, because it seems that cool thing to demo is way up high, and working software is hiding way down in the corner somewhere where nobody sees it. I hope that someone at Xamarin is actually reading the error reports that Xamarin Studio generates. Does anyone there actually use Xamarin Studio? Or is it just something you guys sell and never try yourself? Throwing exceptions on undo and save is something no editor should ever do, period. Please stop adding new features and go fix some bugs. There are hundreds of them, just in the UI editor alone. And he has a list here, an S-ton of null exceptions at runtime. Save doesn't always work. Undo doesn't always work. Android UI designer sometimes decides to F up the whole design. Then a second post. This one because of GitHub's spam system got pulled down, but I grabbed the Google cache of it so we can still see it, and I have that linked in the show notes. Second post, Xamarin makes me sad, my message to them. Here's the TLDR version. I love C# more than any other language, but Xamarin is horrible. I wish it were Mono, and I wish Mono were never invented. It's a disgrace, completely broken and buggy, and the most broken thing in the entire universe. But I still use it. Why? Because I can write for 2 platforms if it was one. Well, not really, but because I work on small apps. I don't have to write all the business crap twice. That's about as good as Xamarin is, and that's the only thing. They can actually compile plain C#. Hooray! If only the rest of the crap if only the rest of the expensive broken crap actually worked as advertised. If you don't believe me, just go to their bugs and look at their bug tracker and look at the mono release notes. Just look at the list of shiny features. Well, half of that crap is either broken or was never implemented or just doesn't work as documented. Everything is just a lie that should make it look good. Xamarin does thousands of things. They release new iOS SDK the same day Apple releases it. Wow! If only they waited a year and released a working version instead. They make thousands of cool features, but they're all broken.
I've been using Xamarin a bit, and so there's a few things here. I'm going to, little defense of Xamarin. I have not experienced any iOS 8 issues, anything like that in Xamarin, period. Xamarin.iOS and Xamarin.android are fine. Xamarin.iOS is definitely better by a pretty significant margin. In our testing here, Xamarin.android needs a little more TLC when you're working on it. It's not unusable, but it's you can tell that there's a preference over at Xamarin, right? That there's a little more TLC on the iOS side. But all in all, Xamarin Classic, as we refer to it, is fine. Xamarin Forms is a steaming pile of shit.
Wow.
We did a POC app for someone, and we ended up totally rewriting it outside of Xamarin Forms.
Really?
Because there is a memory link in moving from one page to another. Now, before that's so mean to talk about this publicly, people email me. I have been working with Xamarin for almost a month now on this issue, and they have given me the, hey man, we're working on it. But I think it's, as my team has been working nights and weekends to rewrite the app, and we paid thousands of dollars in Xamarin licenses.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that I would like to see Miguel stay up and his buddy Jason stay up as well.
Well, now, but doesn't this get back to, don't you think it's a little cheap to throw around the price? Because doesn't that get back to software pricing and how it's all out of whack anyways?
If you buy a broken refrigerator, you are entitled to a refund. If you go to a restaurant and there's glass in your salad, you are entitled to a refund. If you go to a restaurant and your salad's fine, but your soup has a dead roach in it, you are entitled to a refund.
Yeah, I suppose so.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do. I follow you.
So half, in my opinion, Xamarin Forms is half of the product.
Wow.
I believe that everyone, because it's part of the value prop, right? It's very simple enterprise-style applications. My opinion that everyone who in the last year has purchased a Xamarin license of anything above Indie, right, where you'd be entitled to forms, so business and up,
Yeah.
should be entitled to a minimum of 50% refund. And in my mind, Xamarin does offer consulting. Frankly, they should be working on your customer apps and your internal apps to resolve the issues. These are memory issues that, in forms at least, you have no way to access the low enough level to resolve on your own.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, be a better low-level developer. I can write C++, I can write Objective-C. And ironically, the issues do not exist on iOS. So that goes to show you that, or rather, they're not as prevalent and they don't cause crashers on iOS. So again, Xamarin Classic, wonderful tool. I have not experienced really anything negative other than Xamarin Studio on Windows being kind of flaky.
Yeah, I've heard that
too.
too.
It's pretty obvious if you're using Windows, they want you to use Visual Studio.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it
Xamarin
works better on Linux and Mac, right?
Yeah. Xamarin Form, well, I don't know that there's a Linux version. Xamarin Forms is wonderful on iOS and totally broken on Android. And it's broken in a very sneaky, memory leaky way where you won't notice till you're at that like 80% point and you need to start QAing and putting on polish.
Takes a while to sneak up on you, you're saying?
Yeah, and let me add some documentation, lest people think I'm cruel. I'm going to point you to the bug where they confirm the issue.
Oh, very good. Yeah, okay. I can toss that in the show notes too, so we have that. Yeah, you know,
this is where we get into, in the world of open source software, like if Rails has a bug, in my opinion, nobody has the right to bitch, right? But when you're paying what is a very significant amount of money for developer tools in today's market, right? You just simply cannot tolerate this.
Agreed.
And frankly, if I was Miguel de Icaza, I would be out publicly firing people, shaming people. There would be very, very firm responses to this.
I mean, I don't mean to. So this seems inevitable because of what the goal they're trying to accomplish is so vast. They are trying to essentially keep up with the innovations of Google, Apple, and Microsoft all at once.
But they're not, right? So that's the problem. On Xamarin Classic, they're just writing basically a .NET wrapper on Android and iOS, and that works just fine. I think Xamarin Classic is a great product.
Okay.
Xamarin Forms is the old write once, run anywhere. Except they released it as a 1.0 finished product, and there's this massive bug. Like, this has nothing to do with being a fanboy on iOS, as people are writing in the chat, or being, foolishly technical. This is being shitty at managing your product.
Right.
You release something that you knew or should have known was broken. You charge people thousands of dollars for it. And when someone complains, you say, hey, man, we're working, but we have lives too. Sorry, go fuck yourself. You don't have a life.
Right.
Like,
we spend a lot of money for this.
And in my mind, they're legally liable. They should be culpable for any losses any of their customers sustained because of using forms.
Wow. It's that bad.
Hint, hint, considering suing Xamarin. It's that bad. Like, this is incompetence on a level that's almost mind-bending. And the fact that I'm still dealing with middle management is very disturbing. And that I'm not alone. That's the sad part about this.
So, I mean, I was wondering if maybe we'd read through these reviews, and because to be honest, when I read these people sound like they're being emotional and reactionary. I mean, everything has problems, but it sounds like the problems are severe enough that it causes you not to be able to deliver the product you promised the customer.
Well, the problems are you were sold something, and as part of the price, you're getting Xamarin Forms, right? I have not experienced the problems that these people say they're experiencing with Xamarin.iOS and Xamarin.Android. But the problem is you were sold half of a product, half of it does not work. And think about this. If Microsoft released Microsoft Office and Excel simply did not work, heads would roll. End of discussion, right? The Xamarin guys love .NET so much. I'd like to see what Satya Nadella would do to the guy who said Excel was ready to ship and it was totally broken.
Yeah, you wonder too how some of these platform owners feel about Xamarin screwing the pooch like this. Like, it doesn't make the applications on.
I've heard the Xamarin team running about and going on all these iOS podcasts and talking about how wonderful it is. They're not so quick to go and talk about Forms though, or to go and talk about Android. It's really interesting. It's almost like selective marketing.
So it really
But
is
you're selling forms as
Yeah.
though it were finished.
Yeah. It
Because
really
why?
is though
Because
Android comes second.
if you turn around and said forms wasn't finished at this point, you would
Yeah.
be legally culpable and people would be entitled to refund and damages.
Right, right.
That's what this is all about.
Android second, iOS first, and then they
Well,
called
Android,
it.
Xamarin.Android works. Xamarin Forms does not work on Android. And you could say, oh, well, just don't use Xamarin Forms Pages navigation system. That's the whole point, right? I mean, if you're going to use Xamarin Forms and rewrite native pages, then you may as well just write regular Xamarin or write two native apps at that point.
That's a good point. I mean, seriously, at that point, it would turn out better, and you'd have more low-level controls, and you'd have more troubleshooting capabilities. And really, do you want to be tied to?
What's really ironic is if you go into this bug tracker, or not ironic, but really indicative of how they think. Android's next on the hit list. I'm sorry, is there one of you?
Right.
And we have the full tool chain here, so we're getting all these great updates for iOS 8. Yeah, Xamarin Forms and Android is broken. In my mind, if you have a broken product out there, that's a showstopper. Guess what? Maybe you don't get the day one marketing iOS 8 release. You fix the product you already sold to your customers.
Right, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
You don't worry about, the new page detail view for the iPhone 6 Plus, the new extension stuff in iOS 8.
Gotta have it.
You do right by your existing customers, and frankly, you should compensate them for their time and their losses.
Yeah, I think I think the problem is they are extremely limited in resources, and it simply comes down to the fact that they're making their money because of iOS.
No, their problem is that their management is cowardly. That's their problem.
Well, maybe so. I think maybe that's very true, because of the reasons I just said. But I think that's probably that's
right. Because here's the defense, right? Well, we're doing some very hard stuff. Great, then do it. If being hard is your excuse for shipping a bad product, do it as open source. Don't charge for it. And great, right?
Yeah, right.
If you're charging, this is a commercial product, that's not an excuse. Because you're not charging $5 a month. You're charging thousands of dollars per person, per seat, per platform, actually.
Mike's ready for a lemon law for Xamarin. All right, well, I got
to... I'm ready for some accountability. Instead of going on, Miguel de Casa, you want to come on next week? Instead of going on all the iOS podcasts talking about how excited you are about iOS 8 and about the new iPhones, why don't you talk about how you screwed about 30% of your customers?
I would love it if you wanted to come on. That'd be great. And we could have a nice chat. I think the question would really be is, I don't think that's going to fit into the marketing message very much, so I wouldn't be too surprised if that didn't happen. Not exactly the message they want to put out right now. And it's pretty frustrating, and it's interesting that it sort of seems to be bubbling over for a lot of folks. Do you think... it's particularly exacerbated right now because they've been so focused on iOS because of the new release, and so that's why there's so much cries.
I think that's hurting, and I think one thing is that Xamarin Forms, you can feel that they definitely rushed it out, and that there's a little bit of a narrative with some of the developers who didn't try it saying, oh, well, I mean, that's obviously the lazy way. Well, but you bought it, right? So you might as well try it.
Well, yeah.
It's like saying, oh, well, I bought this steak and salad, but, steak's bad for you, right? You shouldn't eat steak.
Well,
so eat the salad, and then you won't have any problems.
What seems interesting to me that I'm noticing is there seems to be a lot of problems that would be pretty obvious with some basic QA too.
Right. So how can you not go 4 views into an Android app and see it crash? Like,
right.
How the hell does even the most incompetent college-aged QA person not catch that?
Which just implies a total, secondary priority status.
It implies that no one looked.
Yeah.
It is the simplest thing. I bet you we could have given Dylan the QA job, and he would have done a better job.
Probably. He's good at finding those bugs.
You're like, hey, it closed.
Surprisingly good those kids are at finding bugs like that.
Ooh, I'm all riled up.
Yeah, it's all right.
Oh, by the way, Linux sucks.
Oh, my goodness. All right, let's take a minute, and we're going to refresh. Here's what I want to do. I want to talk about how right I am about everything, and about how everything we just talked about is completely backed up by facts and data that I want to get to in the next segment. But before we do that, I was kind of exaggerating there. But I do want to mention Linux Academy. Go over to linuxacademy.com/coders, where they've got a whole bunch of new stuff. I was just thinking today, if I was somebody who got thrown into a project where all of a sudden I needed to maintain a LAMP stack, and it wasn't my strength. Like, I've been not a Linux person for a while. Maybe I've been checked out, never had any interest in figuring it out. And all of a sudden I'm thrust in a position where I need to be responsible for this. Linux Academy, that's where I would go. I would just get started right over at linuxacademy.com, and now's never been a better time. Go to linuxacademy.com/coders with that S, so that way Coder Radio gets credit. And I got an email from Anthony. He's the guy that runs Linux Academy over there. Mike, I got to tell you about some of these improvements they're rolling out. And this is why it's great that they have a subscription model, because you get all the stuff I'm about to tell you as just part of your Linux Academy subscription. No rate increase or anything like that. And when you go to linuxacademy.com/coders, you're going to get a great deal. So here's what they just added. He says, check this out. Our lab platform now allows users to have 4 running Linux servers at one time. You can have any distribution you would like from the list. They have 7+ Linux distributions, and then their courseware will adjust to those distributions, which is awesome, as well as 2 public host names for each server. You can even assign each server a role. It lets you say you want to be a database server. One server could be a DNS server. You can label those roles in the interface so you remember what they are. Learning plans are now rolled out. Learning plans allow users to select their daily availability. So you can say, I've got this much time to commit to Linux Academy tonight, or this morning, or whenever it fits into your routine. And they will automatically generate a study plan based on your availability. Learning plans will give you the lessons, quizzes, and labs that are due on each day, as well as even send you an email reminder that you have items due on that day. Based on your availability, will then give you a projected completion date of the course with extra time included for studying. They're also going to roll out some new available courses they've been working on for a while now, like Chef Fundamentals, CentOS 7 Enterprise, as well as Apache Tomcat, deploy and manage OpenStack on Ubuntu, and they've also had some new live stream content. You can ask the instructors questions. It's so awesome. 14 upcoming courses for the remainder of the year, and he'll probably give me the 411 as those get closer. So go over to linuxacademy.com/coders. They have a bunch of great AWS courses as well with scenario-based training, so you've gone through actual deployments where they're spinning up virtual systems on the back end on AWS for you and getting the whole experience. So you've done it in an actual real environment. linuxacademy.com/coders. Go check them out. Never been a better time to get your skills up to the next level, maybe help get yourself over a hump if you're stuck somewhere, or just tease your mind and see what interests you, what's coming up out there in the big, brave world, what you want to test, what you want to go into, what you want to expand into. There's always all kinds of things you can do at linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thanks to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Okay, Mike, so here's the hard numbers. Over the weekend, Apple sold more iPhones than Roku has ever sold devices, period. Apple announces a record 10 million iPhone 6s and 6 Pluses over the weekend. It's a record. For comparison, Apple sold 9 million iPhone 5Ss and 5Cs last year. This means the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus set a new record by over 1 million units. What's crazy about that is they were shut down in China, where they would have projected to sell even another million a day had they been open in China. So that could have been even a higher number if they hadn't had the delay in China, which is absolutely amazing. Sprint has been one of the first carriers, as well as other AT&T has. I don't know if we've heard from Verizon, but Sprint and AT&T said the iPhone 6 debut was the most successful iPhone launch yet. Sprint CEO tweeted and said that they were extremely pleased at the debut, and it marked the most successful launch in Sprint's history. So 10 million iPhone 6s. iOS 8 rolled out on Wednesday. iOS 8 adoption has been lagging behind compared to iOS 7, which was a huge update, if you remember. Everybody wanted to jump on it right away. 30% of iOS users have switched over to iOS 8 already, not counting the new iPhones. And the iPhone 6 standard screen size seems to be the most popular on web analytics. So in one weekend, we have now got more iOS devices running the same version of an operating system than probably all Android devices out there. I look at the iOS ecosystem from a standpoint of somebody who wants to make money selling an application, and you've got to be kidding me. Of course Xamarin's focusing on iOS. Look at this. Look at this powerhouse, and it's a single phone vendor. So you focus on making a great experience on that single phone vendor's operating system, and you get the iPad, you get the iPhone, you get millions of devices, and you get some of the people who are willing to, on average, spend more money in the App Store than in other app stores. You bring all those things together, it doesn't surprise me at all that a company like Xamarin, who's trying to accomplish too much, is eventually going to have to cut corners somewhere, so they focus on iOS. It seems obvious.
Well, a couple of things, right? So certainly getting that many people on the same OS version that quickly is an amazing feat, and Google, I still think it's time to take a little more control over your platform there, right?
Android One.
Isn't that gone?
No, Android One will happen. It's happening. It's happening.
I thought it was.
You're
gone,
thinking
dude.
of Android Silver.
Oh, Silver is gone.
Yeah,
That's
Silver's gone.
I mean, the fact that iOS 8 did well and iOS 6 is doing very well doesn't excuse Xamarin from any kind of selling a broken product
No,
liability that they may have
it doesn't
incurred.
excuse it, but I think it explains that they look at their priorities, and I just I look at it almost like the old game consoles. Like iOS is like the Nintendo powerhouse.
Yeah, but this is what always happens, right? They get a big spike and it levels back out.
No, it doesn't. The iPhone has been the #1 selling phone for every year since like smartphones were a thing. Like I went back as far as 2000.
Phones, but
yeah, but dude,
right? So
but
Android via iOS.
All right. So in like 2011, Samsung sells 40 million Galaxies. That's a lot of Galaxies, right? Apple sold 140 million iPhones, right? I mean, it's still a huge scale. Yes, in total, unquestionably, Android is larger, but it doesn't seem to be materializing to developer priorities. It does not, right? That is not, for some reason, that is not translating to developer priority at all. And you are seeing it now even at the fundamental tool level. It's not just like when Flappy Bird or Instagram comes over anymore, but it's the fundamental tool level.
The Android apps I'm seeing these days are probably some of the best Android apps I've seen in a while.
Yeah, they're definitely a lot better.
I mean, certainly the reality, and I don't think it has anything to do with market share, of Apple customers being, on the average, right? Let's not start a flame war, more inclined to spend money in more traditional ways.
The data would seem to back that up. Yep.
Right. I mean, that's true. I mean, I've in the past, you can listen to the back catalog, kind of criticized Android users in particular for, well, being cheap, right? And for being more willing to trade data instead of currency for app experiences. I don't know what that means. So, I mean, the logical extension of your argument is that no one should support Android.
No, I think the logical extension of my argument is that it's going to have that second-class feel for a really long time, and for people like you that are working with it at the tool layer, that's going to be extremely frustrating because that impacts your product.
Well, the problem is there's no reason for you to purchase a tool unless you're purchasing a tool to hit both platforms, right? If you're going to say that we prioritize iOS and we only do iOS, initially, then just do it in native iOS. I'm not sure I see the.
I think maybe that. Right? I think that is. I think maybe we should be, as an Android user, it frustrates me when an app comes out on iOS that's not available for Android. That's one of the reasons why I started carrying two phones. But at the same time, if I want indie development to be successful, and I don't want every single indie developer to be bought up by a larger corporation and then stamped out into some molded product, then I have to understand that these people have to make money, and in order to make money, they have to sell a really good product. Where our emailer, where he's trying to get a Kickstarter, part of his problem is likely that he's using Unity and is unable to achieve the level of graphics that we would like to see maybe from like something from the Unreal Engine or something like that. When you water it down, you sometimes cannot create the best product you want. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm not saying that's true with Xamarin, whatever. But what my point is, if you don't focus on one thing, you don't put yourself all into one thing and make a native version of the app, it might not be the best app it could possibly be. Therefore, they're not going to make the most kind of money they could possibly make. And if I want to support independent developers, I should be okay with them making the business choice to do that because that's where the money is. And that's what I'm trying to say Xamarin's doing, although they just can't come out and fully say it because their product is being available everywhere. But in reality, what they can actually execute is really, really just kind of getting the Android support kind of there.
You're conflating two very different things.
No,
right?
I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying I can see from like a business reality standpoint what they're up against.
It's a different business, right? The commercial, end user application business is very different from the developer tools business. It's like going back to my fridge analogy. Selling me a fridge is different than selling the guy who makes fridges, some sort of Freon engine to run the fridge. I forgive my ignorance on refrigerators.
No, I follow you though.
Right. I mean, you have I would say if you're in the tools business, you have a higher responsibility than if you're in the end user business.
Yeah.
For instance, let's take a case study, right? Overcast by Marco Arment. Great podcast catcher, great podcast app. Only available on iOS. Is that wrong? Absolutely not. Now, if he claimed Android support and the Android support was really, really crappy, but let's say he did something, I don't know, like use screenshots from the iOS version and reviews from the iOS version to fake out how well, in quotes, it runs on the Android version, then that's a problem, right? Like
Yeah, I see what you're saying exactly. Because it is a tool, because it's at that layer, they actually have more responsibility. If anything, they should narrow their focus, their reach, and just make what they do deliver work really well, and maybe not always have the latest, best new platform features, but the ones they do decide to ship, work.
Right, and I think that's one of the issues over at Xamarin is that they're so eager to tick off the box, but they, I'd rather wait a couple months for new features.
Boy, that feels like a top-down culture thing.
Oh.
Oh. Well, Mr. Dominic, anything else we feel like covering this week?
No, I'm going to go make some chamomile tea, and I'm going to call California and yell at them some more.
All right, if you'd like to give us any of your feedback, go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click the contact link, choose Coder Radio from the drop-down, or go to coderradio.reddit.com. Also, don't forget to join us live. You can hang on our chat room, give us your thoughts as we go, heckle Mr. Dominic or myself. That seems to be a fun pastime in the chat room. You can also title us, bang suggestion away. Chat room, this is your last chance to get your title suggestions in. And join us live over at jblive.tv. We do this show noon Pacific, which is 3 p.m. Eastern. jblive.info for the audio version. All right, everyone. Mr. Dominic, is there anything you want to plug before we go, like a Twitter page or a website you want people to go to?
No. I just want to plug LegalZoom.com.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of Coder Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.